announcement today, like the supporters group had like tickets.
And I knew it was like 11:30.
Yeah, and I was like, let's watch it on. I'll actually go to work and watch it on the internet.
You know, you bring in a crowd.
We're good? Yep. All right, so let's call the meeting to order and stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. No? Sit up here. Sure. Yeah, so the first item is the Bulldog Walking Gallery presentation.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Just give me a second here.
While that's coming up, I could just
Little
quickly
intro.
introduce myself to anybody who doesn't know me. I'm Christina Schmidt. I'm a resident of Irvington. I grew up here, worked really hard to get out of here, worked twice as hard to get back. And I own Art Expo Studio, Main Street business in town. So
Welcome.
thank you. So today I wanted to present the Bulldog Walking Gallery concept to you guys. I've talked to a few other business owners around the village. A couple of them are here with me today. We've formed, a founding committee, and the idea is to bring a public art installation to Irvington that would help to support local business, increase art and culture in the area, and just be kind of like a, fun, joyful way for people to enjoy the spirit of Irvington. So if you want to flip to the next slide, using Catskill, New York as a model, they do this annually. They do it with cats. Different places do different ones. I'm proposing we do a bulldog. So you can see that the cat statues are decorated differently. So like, for example, I could see Lenny from Lenco might want Mosaic because he has a tile company, and maybe, Tony wants a pizza cat or the Renaissance or something along that theme. So basically the way that the program runs is it doesn't use public funds. Local businesses sponsor each one of the statues. They're made of fiberglass, and then we pair businesses with local artists who will design the bulldogs in whatever theme or fashion that kind of like suits and fits that business, or some businesses are just open to anything, and civic associations as well. So I believe they'll have them in front of like the police station or the fire station. So there's like fire cats sometimes, or the artists will come up with these really cool ideas. And then after the business sponsors it and they're decorated, they get a clear coat, a UV coat, and they are put on platforms. So I've seen them on, because there's a bunch of municipalities doing this, I've seen them on metal platforms, and then I've seen them on some sort of like a plastic platform. We could look into, what's available and how to install. But basically they go on display spring, summer, and then in the fall, they have an auction. So it's really exciting. It's a lot of fun. It's a live auction. And this year, Catskill raised over $81,000, which is, impressive. And actually, the highest, I think the highest grossing cat, it was somebody from Tennessee. So I guess you could like phone in bids. It was like over $3,000. Whoever it was had to have that cat. And there's also a little photo of like a map that you can, like a brochure and a map, and you can add like geo tags and stuff like that, so people can, like look for them on Google and stuff. So it's pretty cool. Just gonna flip to the next. I just mentioned a couple other municipalities that are doing it. Cairo, that's close to Catskill. In their case, they actually started this with the businesses that were left, sponsored these bears, and then they used the funds actually to fix some like abandoned, dilapidated buildings. So and then I think in New York, yeah, they did it again last year. And in Saugerties, you can see you can see the platform they use. So they didn't use the black metal platform. I kind of like that one better. They use some sort of a plastic one, but they've got an owl, which is on a perch. We'd have like a larger bulldog. And the statues are about 28 inches in height.
Right,
20
can you
inches
get
in
a little
height.
bit of the pop-up window for a minute,
Yeah, I actually can't, but
or reposition
That's
it?
okay. In a future slide, there's I've got like the dimensions, and I have a blank canvas one to show you
did
guys.
you say 20 inches in height? So like
28 inches.
28 inches. Okay.
Yeah. What did I say? Did I say?
I heard. I think I misheard. It's not.
I could have misspoke.
I heard 28.
See.
Okay, so if you go to the next one, so just to give you a little bit more detail, what we're calling ourselves right now, the Bulldog Gallery Committee, we'd reach out to local businesses and ask them to sponsor a statue. We're estimating that it's gonna cost between 800 to 1,000 per business would cover the cost of the fiberglass statue itself. They're just about 500. And then the installation, the platform, and the cost of brochures and stuff like that. We think that that works. That's the range. So 1,000 at the most. And then we would reach out to local artists, match them with the businesses. We order the statues. They get fabricated, sent to us. The artists pick up the statues. They do have to submit designs. So there's a sponsorship packet and an artist packet. I have like copies of those from the different municipalities. So we'll look at those and, kind of find like whatever the best fit is for us. And then, so the statues get installed, and then we enjoy them, and then in September, we were thinking that it'd be really cool if the live auction was at Rocktoberfest, at least to start, because this is a new thing, and so we can kind of jump onto that. And then we'd like the proceeds to go to revitalizing downtown. So streetscaping, raise planter beds and things like that. Maybe some new receptacles that have like tasteful murals on them. That's kind of like the general thought, but we're not married to anything specifically. Next
So
slide.
they're only placed in front of the businesses who sponsor the statue, right? So they're not going to be like in the park or something like that.
So, I mean, they kind of, the cats in Catskill have strayed. They've made their way, yes, they've made their way down to the waterfront, and sometimes you'll see some, down at the gas station that has an ice cream, parlor inside. So, like, the concept grew, more people got excited about it. I think, I don't know if any like churches did it, but I've seen it in front of like other buildings and places. And I thought, some businesses that aren't brick and mortar, maybe they would want to get involved. And then, we could talk to the rec department and see, would they want one, down at Scenic or somewhere else? I mean, it's totally scalable up or down.
And you have an estimate of how many it would take to kind
Get it going?
of get,
I mean, I was thinking that we would start with between 10 and 20. I like off the top of my head and in talking with everybody involved, I think 10's like easily done. And that you could go, up and down and say like, oh, those look really cool. But I think, aiming for 20 wowould be great.
I mean, one of the great things about the Manhattan one, and I know it's different because it's a huge city and we're a little village, but was that when you'd come upon them when you didn't expect it, like, you'd come into a front of the building like, oh, there's one of those bowls or cows.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
So
they're
that's
like
what
a
I was
nice
just thinking.
surprise.
Like, can you imagine like walking into the park and seeing one or on the corner of, by the statue on the corner of Sunnyside and Broadway, if there was like a dog looking up at the statue, like all these different places, it could
Yeah.
be interesting to.
And I was thinking Historic Hudson Valley might want that just because when you're looking for Sunnyside, you've no idea where it is. You're just,
The
so
bulldog could point
having
away.
something there, yeah, I mean, it could work. There could totally be an Ichabod Crane themed, bulldog, yeah. He wrote
A little creepy, but.
a few things. Well, yeah, he wrote other things, but yeah, I guess most was creepy. So you could go to the next slide.
So Arlene has her hand up. I don't know. Let me see if she's interested in saying something.
Yeah. Can you hear
Yeah, there
me?
you are. Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'm sorry, I'm in a traveling hell thing, but Christina, have you gotten the businesses on the waterfront? Because I'm thinking of unexpected things or like sort of getting people all around the villages, it would be nice if like some of the, we could have some of those in the waterfront businesses. That would be pretty
Great.
cool.
Definitely. I think it would look really
Yeah.
cool over there. I totally agree. Like, and if there were some on the way when you're going down to Scenic Hudson, that's kind of a, dead space. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Wasn't thinking of Madam, but we want to Madam Walker's house.
If
That's
they
a
were
cool
okay
idea.
with it. All right.
So I have like a brief mission statement you guys can read for the Bulldog Gallery Committee, but basically the idea is just to increase art and culture on historic Main Street and in our area to support local businesses. When I say increase traffic, I mean I'd love to have these out around spring so that residents can enjoy them. A lot of residents are not around in the summer. So I'm kind of hoping that in the summer, that's where, these can be something that people come, they check it out, and then, local businesses that don't really get any traffic in the summer maybe get a little bit more. And then also, the Bulldog, it's our mascot. So there's been some divisiveness in this community. This is supposed to be like a fun, joyful project that kind of like brings us together, gives us a sense of like our identity as a community. So the gallery committee right now has a number of Main Street business owners on it. Also some visual artists. I have somebody from the high school as well. I always try to include youth in whatever we do. She won an award for an oil painting she did last year. She's, highly talented, incredible person. And everybody has their own like gifts and talents in terms of project management and in terms of like, what they know for building materials and, graphic design and all of it. So I feel like they pulled together people that can, they know different business owners, different artists, and can definitely support this project moving forward successfully. The source of the statues, most of the municipalities that I reached out to use this company called Cow Painters LLC. So I just wanted to include like the info for them because, they do some pretty high profile stuff. I've already spoken with them. They know that this project's in the works. So, that's who we would be using most likely, but also we could, price it out and see if it's such a specialized thing. It's not like everybody's doing this. We can't just buy these, like at 7-Eleven. So I don't know. We'll see, but yeah.
Such an outdated reference.
I know. Dynamic. And then that is the blank canvas that the artists would get. So these are cats. Obviously, we would have bulldogs. I was thinking just to start, we could do the sitting ones, and then if we wanted to move on to the standing ones, we could.
So they're 28 high.
We would
Okay.
have to have 2 molds, yeah.
Oh, it's more expensive to have 2 molds.
So we have to have the mold made. I did price that in. Because the mold that they have is smaller. So they don't currently have a 28-inch bulldog mold, but I spoke to them about creating it. It's a one-time, cost, and then that they would just, use that for fabrication. So the timeline, I'd really like to jumpstart the project, get this going, get everybody, moving and get these out ASAP. I think it's doable. The committee, they're all ready to meet with me tomorrow or Friday. And, we're ready to roll this out to local businesses, get sponsors, talk to the artists. In January, we would be reviewing applications and sharing those designs with the businesses, and then letting businesses, have final approval, putting orders in for the bulldogs and getting the statues to the artists. Then they get a clear coat, UV weather protectant, and hopefully, if you want to put to the next slide, we could get them installed, shooting for April 1st, depending on the weather. you know, upstate, they have to wait a little bit longer because it's colder and they have more snow. We can start it a little earlier, and then, you know, the kids coming out of school can enjoy it, residents can enjoy it, you know, before they leave for the summer. Yeah, and then I figure around like September 15th, and then you can see like a photo of the display table at one of the auctions. It's kind of cool. So in conclusion, I don't know if I started by saying this, but my goal was just to get an endorsement from you guys, not funds or, you know, anything else, just your support and to be officially recognized so that, you know, we have that recognition and we can go out and say that we've got the support of the village to like make this happen and to find success. And that's about it. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. Happy to answer.
Sorry if I missed this, but do the artists get paid?
Oh yeah, good question. So different places have a different way of handling it. Some of these places, you know, when they do it, the artists, they really are starving artists, like vets that live on the street. So they'll give them money. And then Catskills giving artists, I think, like 30% of the proceeds. Other places will do 15, 20. Cairo, I think, just 25%. So we could work that out. But yes, so the part of the benefit to the artist is that they could get some of the proceeds. So if they do a really nice statue, then, you know, it benefits them to spend more time and effort on that. Also, I meant to mention that on the platforms, the business sponsor, they would have a plaque with their name and a QR code that anybody could scan to go right to the site. So it helps promote their business. Same thing with the artist, right next to the business. We'd have a little plaque with the artist's name and a QR code to, you know, their like Insta or whatever their page is.
Yeah, I think it would be important for the artists to get something, because I don't think we want to be exploited, right?
Definitely,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so they would, like, the whole time they're out, they get promoted, and then they get, and so we can also give them, you know, some money towards materials at the beginning. We're going to talk about like how much that would be, and my art studio, they're happy to just, you know, come on a shopping spree as well. We've got a lot of stuff.
So I think this is a great presentation, a great slide deck. You know, Arlene had spoken about it in general terms, but this really lets us sort of see what you're hoping to do and planning to do. I guess I have two questions. One would be about any maintenance of the statues while they're on Main Street. Is that something that each business would agree that they would maintain? I don't know if
Like if
something's
they get
damaged
dusty or something.
Pigeon poop or.
Yeah. I haven't noticed so I always go and visit the Cats of Catskill. I go up there, I have family up there. So it seems like they're in pretty good condition. I can talk to them about if somebody comes around and like dusts them off, but I think that the businesses would agree to do so.
And I guess my other question was, you talked about each design being approved. That approval comes from your committee?
Our committee, yeah.
And your committee?
Our committee, we, you know, everything, the goal is non-divisive,
Right.
tasteful, you know, nothing political.
Mm-hmm. That was my concern.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great, thanks.
Are these things on the platforms, are they going to be heavy enough to withstand winds down at the river?
I think so. So they come with flanges, and they're bolted in place. They're fiberglass, so
That's pretty lightweight.
yeah.
But the base bolts in place.
Yeah. So like they're quite secure, but they're not heavy enough so that they would fall and hurt someone.
No, I was just worried about them blowing down or blowing away.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think they're like cemented in place of the platform. So I'm gonna get information like specs from.
And again, you guys can think about this, but the platforms, maybe if we can aim on Main Street as the street's tilted down to get the statues to be level, maybe the platforms would be unlevel to get a result.
Yeah,
Yes.
good point.
We do have that fun.
Where you have crooked dogs.
Well, they could be tilted with the rest of Main Street, or they could be straight. They're not that big.
They
They
could
might look
probably
nice.
be straight, but yeah, I think.
There are definitely some challenges when it comes to placing them. So I'm happy to help you out with that with people that,
Sure.
I mean, if you have the expertise, that's great. We just want to make sure that they're safely in place and not in the way or anything like that. That's my
Definitely.
only concern, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure they're gonna be fine. I'm mentioning it because the sidewalks aren't terribly wide.
Yeah, usually it's closest to the cars. So that's how they do it in Catskills, so it doesn't block anybody's walking path. It's closest to the street.
Like between the tree, like if there's a tree here and a
Mhm.
tree here, and you put the dog, well, in our case, the dog here, so they're not
Right.
blocking the.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah, like the path of least resistance where
Dogs
there
and
is
trees.
the most.
Right, and as much as the dog wants to be
So
by the
maybe-
fire hydrant,
maybe
we'll
the
have to
third
avoid the
phase.
fire hydrant.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Great, yeah, okay. Oh, Arlene, it's on, hold on. Arlene, actually, I think you can unmute yourself if you want, but.
Okay,
go
yep,
right ahead.
can you hear me? So I'm gonna assume, Christina, you would work with the business owners in terms of like making sure that the location makes sense, it's like not blocking the walkway, et cetera, that because I think it has to make sense for the businesses too. But I mean, I
Definitely.
think you've contemplated that, yeah. We've talked
Yeah.
about that, so I think yes, I mean, obviously we want to put it in a place that like is safe, that makes sense, it's secure, it's not gonna like fly off and hit anybody. It's not gonna fly off and break, like especially after someone has put a lot of effort into it. So, I mean, I think all of those concerns obviously need to be addressed at each location.
I was thinking it might be good to have some, well, you already mentioned it, the possibility that some alternate locations like the rec center or the senior center, if some business wants to sponsor, but there's just no way to get it out in front of their place because of, think of like a restaurant with seating already, and they're not gonna be able to have much room
Right.
to put a dog in front of that.
Right.
So then have some alternate locations that they could, show their, because once you have the QR codes, you have the key to getting back to where it was sponsored by. So,
Definitely. I think that's a great idea. So if they said, I love this project, but I just don't feel like I have space in front of this particular location, are there alternatives?
Yeah.
We'd love to offer that to them.
Do any of the municipalities do like a map of the?
Yeah, so there's a paper map that we'd work on. So there's a paper map, and then there's kind of like, we could work with a local photographer, who might photograph it for not $700 an hour. And then like there's nice photographs, and then we can go on like Google and add like geotags. So like they each have their own tag, and then they each have like a name that's, fun. And so, yeah, they're labeled and stuff.
What about homeowners? Because like I'm thinking about it because of Halloween, I played in front of a home on Main Street. There might be homeowners who want to place it on their front lawn right on Main Street, right along.
Yeah. I haven't seen any homeowners do that except for the ones that have like, bid on them.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
And then,
Someone could buy one and then
then
put it by
they're
there.
out. I mean, even my mother-in-law, who like literally she like shops at, like the dollar store. She went to an auction and she bid $800 on a cat cow. Shocking.
Did you get it?
But I'm saying even before
And
that,
loves it. And
someone
it's like
could do both.
a fixture at her house.
I'm saying someone could do both. So someone could pay
Somebody
the money
could
to
like
have
sponsor it.
Yes, in front
I
of
don't
their
know if
home.
anybody's done that in Catskill.
Just out
but
of
yeah, they
civic
could.
pride kind of thing, you know what I mean? So
Right.
to support a good cause.
Your block could
And-
do it.
And then, like
Yeah,
a block,
so-
everyone kicking a couple blocks. And then if someone wants to buy it, at the thing, if you become attached to it, you buy it and you leave it
If
there.
you have a lucky-
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I just,
you
like I
move
said, it was in
around
my head
between
because of the
houses.
Halloween.
Yeah, I could see that happening here, like not as much in Catskill, but here I could see that
They're
happening.
nice
The
houses.
school sponsor one if they wanted to.
They wanted
That's sort of
to,
like
yep, any
civic
civic
pride
associations,
thing.
absolutely.
A bulldog with a cap and gown.
Only
Or if
one?
somebody wanted to sponsor for the school, like the IDF wanted to, use a grant towards it or
Yeah.
something. I think the school's only thing, what comes up with them is, liability stuff, so, if it's on the sidewalk outside of the school grounds, they'd probably like that. Just my guess.
Or they can put it next to, Winkle.
It's true.
I mean, the way I look at this is I love these organic, from residents, from, local business ideas. I mean, to me, the greatest one obviously is the Halloween bands that, people had an idea and then they ran with it and it's just grown. So I think, it's always great when you're just looking for support and not money. It's always much easier. So, I mean, I don't really see any downside. I mean, I think people raised all the obvious concerns about, blocking people's walking or whatever. But I think common sense usually weighs out, and those things are usually not an issue. So it sounds great. Let us know how we can help promote it. I pictured the fire company, which is like the charitable arm of the fire department, and the PBA, which is the, obviously the union, but also the charitable part. Like, definitely see them getting involved. Like, I could see a lot of, it's like you just keep brainstorming, like Mitch was doing with just, homeowners or civics, groups or whatever. I think it could be a really exciting thing, and it's nice that it's like multiple months. But it's also not. It doesn't feel like you're gonna have to do a ton of heavy lifting. You're obviously organizing it, and the first year is probably difficult, but it seems like once you kind of identify the artists and things, it should be fairly easy to self-sustain it going forward. And then you have the auction part. Since all the materials are paid for, the auction is just pure profit. And I love the idea of putting it back on the main street to make it nicer and spend money that it's hard to sometimes justify for things. Even decorations and things like that.
Totally, 100%.
So just collaborating recently with Christina, like I have a high degree of confidence in her ability to accomplish a project because of what she just accomplished with the Wonderland float, and then somehow we were able to tear all that down and install it also for our Halloween band. And
You did do that.
yeah, I don't think this Drake had never done any kind of a float thing like that, so we created a float that was in two different parades, and yeah.
No lack of confidence.
This is just wonderful.
Cool.
And you can coordinate with me on any of the promotion once you get off the ground. As the mayor said, we're happy to help out.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Great,
Absolutely.
thank
Coming
you.
in. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
See you around.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, Mayor.
Next is review of traffic report for South Buckout Street and South Astor Street.
So I'll apologize ahead of time. This is not quite as interesting as Bulldogs, but anyway.
You can do it, Larry. We have faith in you.
What's that?
You can make this interesting.
Yeah, I can do it, yeah. All right. So as you probably recall, there's a grant that we received from New York State. It relates to the kind of a two-part project. I'll cover both parts, but the first main one is really the main part I want to talk about. But it's a project that involved the creation of a drop-off or pickup area near the Irvington train station, as well as evaluating the traffic flow in and around South Buckout, South Astor Street, and to a limited extent, North Astor Street. So we had engaged the firm of Kimley Horn, just by way of history, but in this case, this project actually dates back to just prior to the pandemic, when there actually was traffic headed down to the train station. There's obviously a lot less right now, but in any case, we're continuing on with the project to see where it's going to take us. The report that you have in front of you and that we attached to the agenda is an assessment of traffic flow in and around South Buckout Street and South Astor Street. The conclusion of the report is that, in fact, after looking at traffic flow information and traffic counts and crash data, that traffic could be limited on South Buckout Street between Main Street and South Astor Street. So that one first segment off of Main Street could be limited to one direction. Of course, it could be limited either restricting only, allowing only southbound traffic or allowing only northbound traffic. As you go through this, it becomes evident that prohibiting northbound traffic or restricting it to southbound traffic is probably the preferred option. The first item, from a safety standpoint, they evaluated both the crash data over about a 5-year period, as well as evaluating the site distances along Main Street where the intersection is with South Buckout Street. And what they concluded was that, and again, they looked at traffic flow data at various intersections where Main and South Buckout Street intersect, where Main and South Astor Street intersect, and where South Buckout and South Astor intersect. And they looked at those during peak hours back in early October. What they concluded after all of their review is that they felt that the southbound only scenario, having traffic only go off of Main Street headed southbound on South Buckout Street, was the preferred option because it would have the potential to reduce the number of accidents that have occurred. And I'm not certainly not trying to say that there have been dozens of accidents at these locations. I think over a 5-year period, they saw a total of 15 accidents between Main Street and South Astor Street, or in that area, and also including some of the curl around area on South Astor Street as well. There were a total of 15 accidents. They noted that 2 of the accidents occurred on South Buckout Street with vehicles traveling in opposite directions, which, because it's two-way traffic right now. So if traffic were restricted to one way, those 2 accidents would have been avoided. They also noticed that another 4 accidents involved vehicles that were traveling northbound on South Buckout Street. They may have been pulling out onto Main Street. It didn't involve another vehicle traveling in the opposite direction, but it did involve a vehicle traveling northbound on that street. And they felt that those would be eliminated if traffic were going southbound only. They also noticed that there were 2 accidents that involved parked cars. The direction of travel wasn't noted in the accidents, so they just surmised that maybe one was north and one was south, and so one of those could have been eliminated.
Well, probably both of them.
I actually think both could.
Right, because
Yeah.
the odds are it would happen when cars were passing each other, and then.
Yeah, and also, I think one of the net results of this would be that the parking on that street would be reconfigured in such a way, we probably would get more parking on the street. It would be reconfigured in such a way that it wouldn't be quite as narrow as it is now. I mean, right now, it's basically a 1-lane driveway, as you know.
2 cars, so even if we didn't touch anything, and just made it one way, the cars would be less likely to hit the parked cars because there'd be double the amount of, not double the amount of room, but there would never be a time where 2 cars have to fit into the same space.
Yeah. So, depending on how you interpret it, 7 out of the 15 accidents in the area would have been avoided. Maybe 8, depends on how you interpret it. So that's one of the benefits that we were looking for when we started this study. So then we also looked at kind of the traffic circulation and the potential drop off and pickup at the train station. And with South Buckout Street being one way headed southbound only, the pickup and drop off would be much more intuitive for both pickup or drop off if the drop off location were to be on the east side of South Astor Street. And I'll bring up a map here that might be helpful because I know that's confusing.
Well, we can look at this big map that we have here.
Yeah.
I think that would give
Yeah,
us
you're
a
right.
good.
Absolutely. Yep.
Right.
Yeah. I have
Are
a
they
different-
talking about like around number 14, around accident number 14?
Well, so yeah. So actually, this is an interesting second part of the discussion, but I'll bring it forward now. So the location that we were looking at in terms of a pickup and drop-off point was actually down by where number 15 is. Okay. The problem with 14 is that there's a fair amount of parking that's used there that's used not by commuters but by employees and visitors to the library. There's also no dedicated location across the street that could be used as a drop-off zone because Metro North's not going to eliminate any of the parking spaces opposite of where number 14 is. So we've been looking further south, and that's significant because we also had a meeting with Metro North to discuss this idea after we had drawn up our plans, just kind of conceptual plans. We did go over this with Metro North, and Metro North did not think that a drop-off location at number 15 would be heavily used. They think that people would continue to park themselves in the library parking lot or park along the sides of the streets where it's probably not safe, but that's just human nature and kind of what they came out and observed the conditions down there and what happens at pickup time and drop-off time. And so they were skeptical about the utility of having something down by number 15.
Mary, can I ask a leading question?
Yeah.
Not all of this parking is necessarily required at the same time, meaning the parking in front of the library, the diagonal parking is only in use during, let's propose for just during the library hours, which is what, 10 o'clock?
Yeah.
So the whole morning hour of 7 to 9, if that was no parking, could be used as a drop-off zone.
Like in front of Main Street School.
So
Right.
that it's a kind of a dual use.
Right.
Where
Right, and it's sort of used that way now. I
it's sort
think,
of used that way now,
Right.
right?
So we could formalize that.
particularly in
a
the
sense.
morning.
Right.
I mean, I don't know about.
But
the-
I do go, I think it'd only be in the morning, but, because don't you think that's what makes sense? Or do you think there's gotta be a pickup spot too? But
Right.
the thing is, the reason I'm just mentioning that is because, I think that the Metro North is right, that 15 is so far out of the way in terms of, it's even, it's past the end of the platform almost. So, it's got all the down steps are, I don't know where the down
No,
steps
there's a
are.
step right across from it, yeah.
Is there one at the end of the
Yeah.
platform? 'Cause
Yeah,
there
that's
was-
the last one.
There's
Yeah.
one around
But
14.
it's far out for sure.
But
I can pull up the conceptual plan just so at least you can visualize the area, not that we're agreeing on
I think
anything.
it's telling that both Larry and I immediately assumed it was gonna be by 14, right? Because
Yeah, no,
And honestly, I even think 14, just knowing people, no,
too far away.
too far away. I think if it's not right where you can go into the tunnel,
Yeah.
I don't think people will use it.
Probably
that's
right.
why that area seems to be crying out for multiple use.
Yeah. That's why I thought, kind of like when we had, I forget who did this, like the kind of the circle idea, like right at the bottom of Main Street, kind of made sense. It'd be almost like a little pull-off area or something. But
Yeah. I think, well, look, I mean, we have a $200,000 grant from New York State. And I think the board's committed another 200,000 to this. So I think the circle idea is not happening for 400,000 at the end of Main Street. So we were trying to fit something in, that made some sense, but, just to visualize the area. So,
Yeah, why am I confused? What are we?
yeah, so this hatched off area here at the bottom, that's the DPW. This is one of the driveways to the DPW garage right here. Okay, and this is the other driveway to the mechanics garage. So this is down by 15.
Mhm.
And so the concept was, well, what I was going to get to in my second part of this was that we've basically, after the conversation with Metro North, we've abandoned any sort of a pull-off on the west side of South Astor Street. That's this right here. Okay, this little pull-off area. So we've basically abandoned that. and in favor of having some sort of a drop-off point here or a pickup point here, where we could utilize the off hours of the DPW for people to be able to pick up and drop off. But that we may be able to look at something in front of the library instead.
Well, the library though usually has late hours, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, that's a challenge. Yeah.
See, I'm a little confused about one thing though, and that is, and maybe I'm bringing my school experience into this, but you know, pick up and drop off are two very different things, right? Because the idea on drop off is the car comes, lets the person off and goes, right? But at pickup, you know, most people arrive at some period of time before the train, because trains are sometimes late, you don't always know, right? So then you have a lot of cars standing and waiting, which is different than the drop off. It seems like two different zones would be needed, like, because a circle idea, and I know we don't have the money for it, but I'm just speaking conceptually.
Yeah.
For drop off works because you're just coming down,
Right.
stopping, person
Right,
gets
jump
out,
out,
and
yeah.
they're out, right? But for pickup, you need a place for cars to line up essentially, right? And that's essentially, but that's what's happening now. People just parking in by the library, picking, you know, part, like before the pandemic, my wife used to go into the office once every 6 weeks. If I was picking her up, I would park in front of the library and wait. Like that's.
Or they park in
Well, you
front.
know, 15 does make sense for a pickup spot.
Right.
Because people sit in the last train
It's like
because
a
they know
cell
someone's
phone
waiting.
waiting lot at the airport.
Right,
Yeah.
and we know that's probably the biggest area available where cars could conceivably line up. But I think, you know, I agree with Mark that perhaps as a drop-off, and I don't know how confusing it's gonna get to have separate pickups and drop-offs, but I think it makes sense.
Other
That
people-
perhaps to use that area in front of the library for the morning rush hour, you know, from 6 to 8 or whatever.
We'll have to continue that.
That can't be parking, and that's enough for 3 cars at a time to stop and let people off.
Oh, more than that.
More than that, yeah.
Yeah.
But I-
Well, they're not gonna pull in, they're gonna park,
Yeah.
they're
But
gonna
even
use the length
so-
of their car. I mean, I see what people do in the morning, and they're not gonna pull into the parallel
Yeah, but this
spot.
is but there's
No.
1, 2, 3, 4,
No, but they could pull.
It looks
parallel
like
to the
16
sidewalk.
spaces, so.
Yeah.
Here's my question though, really, is what's gonna stop people from doing what they do now, which is in the evening? A lot of pickup, almost a good deal of it is people driving south on South Astor and just stopping behind the cars that are there. And if they have to move, they move because someone wants out. Otherwise, they try to pull over out of the way of the traffic and just hang out there. No, I'm saying I don't know that if you could formalize another solution, that's going to be any better in terms of just what people would naturally do. It's actually pretty effective.
Yeah, I like the analogy of a cell phone lock though, at the airport. Right, you get people at a place to wait, but I mean, what's the problem with people waiting in the available parking in the evening? That's what I don't really, like, what's the problem that we're solving here? Because again, I did it every 6 weeks, so I'm not the average person who had to come 5 days a week and do it. But I don't remember ever having a problem getting a spot in front of the library and waiting for my wife
For pickup.
for pickup. Right. I've never, like, drop off, I know it gets crazy and everything, but because at the time I think is more compressed a little bit. But
Really do think it's so dependent upon the time of day, you know, because
So of course, the problem with drop-off on the west side of Astor is most people are coming down Main Street, making a left onto the east side of Astor. I'm sorry, on the east,
on
the
west side.
opposite. The problem with a drop-off on the west side of Astor by the library is that most people are coming down Main Street, making a left turn, and now they're on the west side of Astor, and the drop-off is opposite from where they're coming down.
unless you let
Well,
people pull in.
Well, no, but if the traffic is, if South Buckout Street is changed to one way, then people who are used to coming down Main Street, making a left onto South Astor,
We'll make the left on.
they can't then
Buckout.
curl around back to Main Street. They're gonna have to go Station Road or other places, which doesn't make sense for many people. So
Right,
so
but the
they'll
return
be
trip,
forced to going down South Buckout Street
And then hooking around.
and curling around
Right.
South Astor and then up.
Mhm.
So
but
then
just remember, it's not the return time after you've dropped off your load, it's the getting there time, and everyone's running late. So unfortunately, you're going, you're putting South Buckout and half of South Astor driving time in the way of getting to the train on time.
Which will drive people to make a right onto Astor, heading towards Bazaar, and just stop in the road there and let people off there.
That's what I think.
Well,
Which is what
signage and enforcement.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we're not trying to make things worse here, you know what I mean? So the goal of this was try to make it more logical and have some sort of order to it, as opposed to just anything goes, you know?
But
Well, let's think about for a minute, the problem with dropping off by Bazaar, taking it, I know it sounds bizarre, but the problem is there's no easy way to make a U-turn at that point. Like to get back, otherwise you have to go, what are you gonna do? A 3-point turn in the middle of North Astor? Or you end up going across into Bridge Street, which is nowhere near an optimum solution.
Right.
So,
I do see people, like, to me, that's why the circle idea made sense, just because people go down, they drop them off right there, and they just kind of do the loop-de-loop right back up the hill. Is there a way to do a circle with just paint as opposed to, physically changing the infrastructure?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. Like, it's me, that's like, because I also feel like that little, I wouldn't even call it a pocket park. It's like the trees that you kind of see them here. Like, is there a little bit more room there that you could make it a little wider, for people dropping off there? I always thought that would be a potential drop-off spot, 'cause it's all kind of checked off now.
Right, is that Metro North or is that Bazaar property?
no, that's not, we're talking about right at the end of Main Street.
Yeah, literally at the end of Main Street.
Right
Mhm.
where you have the entrance essentially to the tunnel.
Exactly.
It's not the most beautifully landscaped area.
Right,
like
it's
where
not a pristine.
yeah,
I walk the dog there sometimes.
I thought it was village property.
Yeah, I can't tell you exactly where the village
Somewhere it
line
ends.
is.
It comes
It's
back.
in there somewhere. It's
Yeah.
behind the guardrail,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but before you get to the concrete bunker style thing that's there.
That's why I wonder if there's a creative thing where you can, kind of make it a circle. Because people do drop them off right away and go. It's not like they sit there and say their sweet goodbyes.
no, and the closest you could get to the tunnel would be the best.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I think you just have to have the way to make a safe kind of, U-turn or circular turn.
The only other thing, I know this is totally absurd, just a what if you're talking about a drop-off spot where people took a right onto North Astor, the logical thing would then to reverse the direction of whatever that piece of whatever goes, loops around,
By the post office.
yeah, and down in front of the park, whatever that little thing
And then
is
it would
called.
actually make the drop off for the mail make sense again too.
That's right, because you
Oh, and actually, no, that's still backwards, never mind.
Well, anyways, the point is if it's one way,
Right, be on the correct.
But it faces the sidewalk now, I think.
yeah, right, because of
The
the
broad stuff,
the
right?
theft, yeah. But anyways, the point is that would be more common. They'd loop around and come out, and then South Buckout continues southbound. So it's like continuing the flow that way. I don't know, I know could probably cause more uproar to have all that stuff, but
And I do think people, even that, which is like kind of like a short, detour, they'd still try to do the loop-de-loop turn.
oh, I think that would be the most, the best would be to do the circle at the base.
Yeah.
But none of that precludes changing
No.
South Buckout to one way in the southbound direction.
To me, it's just, I always feel like scared driving there, especially if you get into like the part where there's like parking on both sides and it's like, now I'm committed, I'm going, like, there's nowhere I can go, and then someone coming up the other way.
A garbage strip coming up
Yeah.
the other way. I've had that happen
Yeah.
a couple times. It's just like,
Back up.
what am I gonna do here?
You hope you get one of those driveways.
Okay. All right. Well, I thank you for the feedback. So we'll meet with our, traffic engineer and kind of readjust what we're looking for. I think one of the things that we were, regardless of drop-off location, and we'll have to see how the state funds lay out and what we ultimately do. But we were trying to get a sidewalk that continued on the west side of South Astor Street, so that triangle area, sorry, I had it up before. We still had a goal of, let me get the screen shared here. We still had a
It's
goal
not
of,
showing, there it is.
yeah, of getting a sidewalk. Can you see yeah, right here? Getting a sidewalk along here, not with this drop-off area, but even continuing on straight here.
You know, part of the problem there is that there are often DPW trucks parked in such a way that it's difficult, you know, in that area, you know,
Yeah.
specifically, but it can be difficult for cars to even get around them sometimes. So
Right.
whether they're there at 9 in the morning because they're washing them down or whatever, there are often.
Well, I'm talking about the far side, the opposite side of the street. So I know it's hard to see here, but
The west side.
the west side, the river side.
Oh,
That would-
okay.
That would make more sense because
I'm
it's
sorry,
funny,
I would-
when people tell me that why can't we have a sidewalk on Buckout? Like there is.
Right.
It's not the one people want to use.
Right.
It goes too far.
Well,
So I
because
think you're right. I think the one on that side would make more sense because that's where people walk because it's a little closer to the train.
right, and ultimately what we're trying to do, and you know, for years,
Yeah.
we've been trying to have a direct link of a sidewalk from South Buckout beyond the Stanford Bridge, Astor Buck building, beyond there to the Half Moon neighborhood, to have a sidewalk link in front of the Astor Buck building, and then down around the corner in front of Osu and in front of the bakery.
Yeah.
That there's no direct link there, and this would come right up, right here on the edge of the screen here is where the bakery is. So that our ultimate goal is to make this link.
So this would be the first chapter of that.
We want to use, we'd like to use, you know, some portion of this funding to accomplish at least that.
So it would basically be like in this big map, it would be right on top of where the cars are.
It would be right in front of them, yeah. Yeah, the roadway would get
Just to the
side.
west of the cars.
Yeah.
Makes
So
sense.
the road gets very,
Larry, can I ask a question? Because this study predates my time on the board, right? So I didn't know, I didn't get the background of this. I understand that the situation on Buckout Street is being studied because of the accidents, right? We have a problem, an actual data problem, right? We have hard evidence, like there were these 15 accidents over 4 years, and that's why we need to look into this, and I totally understand that. But what was the problem originally presented with the train station? Because again, it's not something I do every day. Is there a problem? Do people complain about pickup and drop off there, or?
Again, the identified condition is that there's no logical organization to anything that happens down there, other than whatever people
Right.
feel like they need to do to get someone to the train or off the train. So we were trying to provide something that was organized and, you know,
more like a arrival departure sense to that
yeah,
area of the village.
you know, that's what we were trying to do. but
Wasn't that in the
again,
comprehensive plan update?
It's kind of like we're
Yeah.
lucky up to now
Yeah.
that there haven't been accidents.
Well,
Well,
that's
that's
what
the
I'm
thing. You
saying,
don't
is
want
the
to wait
answer's-
for a pedestrian to get hit.
Right, so
because
that's
it's
what I'm saying. So it's more like,
It was in the Main Streetscape plan.
Okay, right,
so
right.
we're worried about the potential for a pedestrian to get hit or something. So before something bad happens,
Right.
we want to step in. All right,
No,
no, I
it's-
just wanted to
I mean,
understand the
that's
basis.
that's the broad goal, but I think, as we discussed tonight, the potential solutions weren't getting right at that original goal,
Right.
because we don't have the real estate for it. So
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
why these things have been kind of
Well,
shifted.
And I think some of it was a little bit of a beautification for the.
Well, that's it, the
the
streetscape
bottom-
plan
Yeah.
The
was,
bottom of Main Street.
it
Yeah.
wasn't about solving pedestrian accidents, it was about providing a place of arrival and
Yeah.
departure
Exactly. Yeah.
to focus your entry into the village from the train, because there was going to be informational kiosks and everything down there at that end, so you could plan your journey into the village. So, I mean, if you go back,
Exactly. Sounds like-
back to the Main Street streetscape, that's where it all, I think,
So it ties
originated.
into that.
Yeah, because as you say, it's kind of scruffy and
Yeah.
it was like a, you know,
Not a gateway.
it's not- it's
It won't be
not-
bad once the dogs show up down there.
It's not putting our best foot forward. Just so that-
Larry, as I've shown, my sense of direction is poor here, but if we could turn to page 5 and the second, where there's the level of services, on the last one up furthest to the right, which says one-way southbound on South Buckout Street. That would be the direction that we're considering going, correct?
Yes,
And so all of those services are A's except for one, which is a B, and is projected to conceivably become a C in 2042. Where is that? What's SBTR? I can't figure out what.
Southbound turn right?
Southbound turn right. So that's where you're going down. So that's where you're making that turn right at the intersection of Buckout and Astor Street, where number 7 is.
Right,
On
right,
the
goes to,
picture.
yeah.
So that one now is already a B, I guess.
That doesn't make sense because,
Well, there's a stop sign there.
yeah,
So
but
that could be one reason why it slows things down a little bit.
Get rid of the stop sign, fix the problem.
yeah, then you have more accidents. It
Move
just,
everything
maybe
quick.
we're misreading that notion because it doesn't sound like the stop sign should cause it to be a level B.
It's 13.4 seconds of delay apparently.
That's a full stop, all right.
Right,
Because
I
the
mean, that
north-
was,
Well, the
that was my
northbound,
only, so I couldn't sort of figure out why, where and why that would be. Now I see where it is. I'm still not quite sure why.
And obviously that, the reason why it's gonna get worse is because if it's one way, then it's funneling more traffic through that direction.
Right, it's funneling traffic in that.
well, also there's two-way traffic coming from the rest of South Buckout, and all of it's going to be forced to turn down Astor.
Correct.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
right, because you can't.
So
go
you have a lot more left-hand turns in front of that stop sign,
Mm-hmm.
if you know what I'm trying to say.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Actually, those cars don't have a stop sign.
Exactly. No, I'm talking about the stop sign.
Yeah, right.
That's
They're all gonna be diverted going left now.
right.
Yeah, so that's
Yes,
why that
right,
intersection was
right.
slow.
intersection
that makes sense.
designation is it's eastbound and then the directions that you can go, which is left and right,
Right.
or southbound, which is through and right, or northbound, which is left and,
Oh, through and right.
yeah.
But you won't be able to do that anymore under the new rules.
No,
it's
that
changed.
is the way that you would do.
Yeah,
You obviously can't go, that's what they're saying, you can't go northbound on Buckout. between-
correct, yeah.
Right.
But that will drive traffic down Astor, to try, and again, also by the train station.
Right, they analyzed in all of this data, so, and didn't identify an issue with it.
Okay.
And I do think that the most dangerous thing is making the right, well, I guess the most dangerous thing would be making the left out of South Buckout onto Main Street.
Yeah, making
Actually, I
any
think going
turn.
across.
Going across.
Well,
yeah,
right, actually, any direction.
Any of them, because it's hard to see because of the parked
Right.
cars.
No, I,
Right.
I,
Some people
Right, so
shoot
that's
up Main
why it
Street
makes
too,
sense
so.
to go down.
my son has trouble.
And I'm shocked there's only one accident.
I am
Yeah,
too.
that's-
I think there's a lot of almost accidents. But I think the good thing is people can stop coming up the hill because it's gravity.
So Arlene had her hand up, but I'm not sure.
I did. And then I actually, what I was going to say is part of the problem with the train station in terms of like not having a place to stop, because it's that people just kind of stop before the stop sign in front of the library to pick people up. And then actually a lot of people drive around the people who stop. So like, I don't know, part of it to me seems to be like an education campaign about safer driving. And like, I know that the police would have cars every so often at the train station because people would be in a rush in the morning and not stop at the train station when you make the right to go around to the train. But I guess I wonder what part of this is like community education, you know, about like these streets, because there's just a lot of bad driving also. I don't know how many one-way streets is going to eliminate the bad driving.
Yeah, being tough on enforcement is just hard when you're coming from a position of not having given anyone an alternative, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that there's an excuse for bad driving, that didn't mean it that way, but it's hard to crack down on something when you haven't given them a better answer, you know what I mean?
No,
The
I
behavior
agree.
because you have to.
I agree, Larry. But like, let's say that you stop, like sometimes, right? Sometimes I'm working from home and I'll pick up my niece and my nephew from the train station, and like they're just like, and this happens all the time at the train station. Like people are running into the cars or people are picking them up, and then what I actually see often is the crosswalk to the library where people are crossing a lot from the train to walk up Main Street. there are a lot of people who like drive around the cars that are stopped, but I guess if we're talking about like a dedicated space where there's like a dedicated pickup space, that might be good to avoid the like driving around, to take down the people who are crossing that crosswalk to the library to go up Main Street.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we'll circle back with the engineers and try to explore and, try to get more to the heart of the issue here. But as you said, there probably isn't a reason to not go forward with the South Buckout one way, or at least
No.
get it out there in the community and begin the conversation anyway. I mean, this was really just to
Yeah.
explore what's been done.
Right, so what are next steps as far as that's concerned?
Yeah, I'll come back to the board where we put more out there now that it seems like you're, in favor of doing that. We'll put more out there for the community to weigh in on and have them have a chance to, come to a meeting and speak up about it if there's concerns and, in case we missed anything, of course.
Just to be clear, I'm open to hearing about it. I haven't made my mind up yet as
Yeah,
to whether the decision.
And that's the feedback I wanted, was just to see if there's a reason to continue on discussing this or not. So, good.
Because I am a little concerned. I want to re-look at. I looked at the report, and glanced at it. I really didn't go deep into it because it's going to drive all the northbound traffic down into the train area. That is a little concerning. But if the numbers add up so that is actually lowers the overall, distributes it better, then obviously that's fine. Yeah.
Right. Yep. And I think that is covered in these traffic counts and the turning diagrams that are in here when you have a chance
It's
to.
very technical.
Yeah, but it's, if you really
Yeah.
start thinking about the geometry down there, it's pretty makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Good.
I think, the only other thing we didn't mention, that, we talked about, Larry, was this was all focused on kind of the south part. And we had, I think the one other open question we had, which was kind of unrelated to this piece of it, it was almost like phase two, was looking at the direction of North Buckout or either changing that or making it if it stays the same way, making it a left turn only, not be able to go to Bridge Street, just again to reduce traffic on people zooming to Bridge Street or zooming to the train. They might still zoom to the train if they do it that way. But I know that it was kind of beyond the scope of this, but it was still an open question that we had talked about. So.
Yeah, and we'll pose that to the engineers.
If you do reverse the flow, they can't take a turn.
That's true. Yeah.
Because I think my problem was thinking about that when we talked about it last, was how do you really prevent them?
Right. So
Without
if there's
putting some kind of a barrier.
if you have some kind of like soft barrier.
Yeah, it's just the problem with northbound traffic on North Buckout is the turn, especially if you're leaving the waterfront, is the turn onto Main Street. Now you introduce the poor sightline intersection again into the equation. I realize the other location, all of the side streets on Main Street have the same issue, but these are through streets. So it's different, it's a different volume.
Right.
So, the left-hand turn onto Main Street to go eastbound on Main Street up the hill is now that's going to be in play.
Right.
So,
Oh, right.
I mean, those are, we'll discuss it with the engineers. I'm not an engineer, so.
Every time you push, it pulls.
Yeah.
There's always something.
There's always something, exactly. Yep.
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of work, and I think it's an interesting project for sure, and it's something that we've talked about for a long time, and obviously the comprehensive plan spoke about it as well. So, so everyone here knows too, like Larry and I were talking briefly about it. Once we kind of get concepts that we are excited about, obviously the next step is public meetings with, especially make sure that all the neighbors are noticed that we're talking about maybe changing the direction of their street, and hopefully that they support that idea. But that's kind of the down the road steps. But for now, it's kind of, I think we have to first get excited about it. So.
You have an attendee with their hand up to you. And it's a work session, so I don't know what you want to do.
Yeah, I think it's quick enough that we can take it. This might be might be a terrible decision, but it might be great.
We'll see.
Assuming they were willing to identify themselves.
Yeah.
since they don't have a name,
Yeah.
if they had a name, I'd be more excited about it, but I didn't realize they didn't have a name.
I don't think it's a good
So I will-
personally.
I will make a motion to adjourn if I can have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And again, Mark,
Aye.
thanks again. This is my last meeting. I'm not here Monday, so just want to thank you again. I already gave my sappy speech last Monday, but it's been an honor and a privilege to work with you, and wish you all the best. So you figure out what next board you want to be on. Thanks very much. And adjourn.